Hello, welcome to another one of our videos, and today I'm going to show you first of three videos where I'm just looking at one particular movement or exercise, and with the specific intention of measuring heart rate. So this first one's just a step-up exercise that I'm showing you here, nothing too complicated about it, and basically I'm going to run through how to test your heart rate capability of it, so you can use it as an exercise to measure how well your heart is functioning, your cardiovascular system, and as a result you can use other exercises and methods to try and improve it. And even this exercise itself could be used as a test. The test itself could be used as an exercise. So I'll run through quickly how it all works. So firstly, what you need is like a small box to stand on. Like you can see here, this is it's not a big one. You don't really want one that's too high, because a lot of the time people sort of stand on one that high. I could definitely do that, and it's not bad for a strength version, but for this version we just need it to be something that's sort of a simple step height that you can do repetitively. So that's the first thing. The second thing you need is a stopwatch, because this needs to run for 3 minutes. Alright, so exactly 3 minutes is what you want to do. Alright, so that's the next thing you need. When you're doing the exercise, it's important to try and keep a steady cycle. So you could sort of see when I'm doing this that I'm keeping it like a constant beat. So it's roughly like about, if you were to count how many steps in a minute, it's being about 22 to 24 steps in a minute. If some people might have a metronome or something you could use to help keep you the pace, but if you can just sort of keep a constant steady pace, so you don't go all out really fast or start out really slow, it's got to be the same for the whole 3 minutes. Now when you get to the end is where your measurement comes into place. Alright, so the way this works is as soon as you stop, so let's say this is the end of the 3 minutes right here. At the end of the 3 minutes, I'd take my pulse, so you can sort of see I'll do this at the end. I'll just go to the end here. So I'll measure my pulse right now. If you've got a heart rate watch, some people got iWatches or Garmin or Polar watches. They're all great. I used to have a Polar watch. My battery ran out, so you can do it manually though if you don't have a watch, so it's no big deal. All you got to do if you're doing it manually, you just multiply the number of beats that you have in 15 seconds by 4. All right, so you just number of heartbeats that or the pulse rate that you have, multiply it by 4. Then the number that gives you, will give you. There's a little chart that I'm going to provide in a second that'll show you the where you would fit based on your age group. If you're either very poor, average, above average, good, or excellent, and you can basically give yourself a bit of you see whereabouts you're fit amongst this information was collated from a whole heap of people. I think it was over about 5,000 people. It was from the Canadian Public Health Association from back in 2001 or something. So, but yeah, a sample of a lot of people across multiple age groups, all the way from 18 to 65. So it gives you very simple, so there's no skill involved in this test. This doesn't require running, so it's a great one for older populations, because a lot of running tests will measure VO2 max, etc., but they're not applicable for a person who can't run and all those things. So this is quite a simple test to use. All right, so check out the description underneath the video, because I'll have the formula and all that there, and there'll be other articles that you can reference with that'll have heaps of information about lung capacity, heart measuring, other things that play a factor in helping you become better at that, breathing and all those sort of things. All right, so that's the first of our 3 videos. The next one will be a walking one, so let's have a look at that. Hello, welcome to our second video of our heart rate capability in VO2 max and all the things to do with cardiovascular health. This is our second test. The first one was the step-up test. This is the second one, which is another very simple form of exercise, and it's just walking. You don't really need a lot for this. I'm doing this one on a treadmill. You don't have to use a treadmill. You could use a running track. It could actually be a better result if you use a running track. You don't even need a running track, but you just do need to have somewhere where you can measure out 1 mile exactly. All right, so running track's easy because it's 4 laps, 4 by 400 metres gives you 1.6 miles. On the treadmill, I can easily do that as well. All right, so all you've got to do is basically find that track and then walk 1 mile as fast as you can. At the end, you record the time it took you to complete your mile, and as soon as you finish it, record your heart rate. So if you've got one of those iWatches or Polar Watch, Garmin, they can do that for you. If you don't, you can just use your hand to take your own pulse and do it the old-fashioned way, the manual way. Once you've done that, there's a little formula you can use, and it's in the description under the video here of how you can use that formula to calculate what your VO2 max is. Always remember these things aren't 100% accurate, but they're pretty close to the mark, and it's a great way for a person who unable to do a running test or one of those stationary cycle ones where you're hooking yourself up to all sorts of instruments. And it's a great one for a person who's relative. You can sort of see here on the treadmill, you can get a rough idea of how much speed I'm sort of walking at. I'll sort of open that up. So I'm doing about 6.5 kilometres an hour there, which is in the top right hand corner, just there. But on an outdoor running track or just even on track in general, you won't actually know the speed you're walking at. You'll just be walking as fast as you can. That's where they're probably a little bit more accurate than a treadmill, because treadmill you can actually see the thing. You may be walking to a number and not your potential, but in terms of the test, it's a great way to sort of measure your where you're at with your function. So then all your other exercises that you may be using, you could be strength training, maybe walking itself might be a thing, maybe the step-up test we showed earlier, some cycling or whatever, swimming, all the different things you're doing. This is one way you can measure your improvement. Then you can get an idea of, okay, am I improving at where I need to be? And on the step-up test that we gave you last time, there's a good chart that we gave you that gives you an idea, a ballpark of where you sit versus where thousands of people across different age groups are currently what their standard is. So it gives you a good way to sort of measure your improvement. All right, so that's the second one. The third one we'll come to next is a much more difficult one, and this one involves running. All right, so we'll see you on that one. Hello, welcome to the third of our videos where we're discussing how to measure and test your heart rate capability. This is the third test, and this one is definitely the hardest. This one will take you to complete exhaustion, and it's actually meant to. This is the only one where you really do need a treadmill, all right? Because the reason for it is you have to actually set the speed on this at exactly 11.3 kilometres an hour, all right? And then what happens is after every minute you increase the incline. So here's the incline here, it's on 0. After every minute, the incline goes up 2%. And basically, you just keep running and running and running at that same set speed of 11.3 kilometres an hour for as long as you possibly can until you go to complete exhaustion. All right. So this is a great way to sort of measure the VO2 max. This is really good for athletes and stuff, or sporting people who are really wanting to sort of see what their absolute limit is. Probably not suitable for the person who has a heart or a cardiovascular problem. You see there I've just increased the incline to 2. So I've just done my first minute. So there's my incline's just gone up. But this is a great way to measure it, because the test is always going to be difficult. So at first it doesn't start out that hard if you're used to running a bit. 11.3 is sort of fairly easy pace, or if it is for me anyway. But and basically at the end of it, when you complete the thing, so you need to have to be able to measure your heart rate. So when you stop the test, you basically, to measure it, there's a formula. I'll put it in the description under the video here. You basically, to measure your VO2 max, it's a formula of 42 plus the time it takes you to do it, the time it takes you to complete the test times 2. So for example, I think in this example, I think I got to 5 minutes 30. So 5:30 times 2 is 11. So 42 plus 11, my score was 53. All right, and that gives you an idea of how the formula works. You know, and then a lot of people will improve on it to try and beat their score, and even just to beat it by a score of 10 seconds requires 100%, 110% effort just to take 10 seconds, add 10 seconds to your time, because you're always going to go to your limit. You can sort of see here I'm a minute 45 into it. I'm about to head up to the next incline. You know, and again, it starts a bit like the beep test. I don't know if you've ever done the beep test before, but it starts out fairly easy, and you don't even feel like it feels like you're running so fast, but the person observing you doesn't really look at you running that fast. It's just that you're running completely out of oxygen, and the working muscles are starting to burn into the lactate phase. Here we go. I'm going to have to go up another 2%, so now I'm up to 4%, and I'll have to run like that for another minute. So I'll go right to the end. You'll sort of see where I'm starting to get quite fatigued. Where am I at here? I'm nearly the 4-minute mark, and I'm on 6%. So now I'm about to head up to 8% here. You know, and you just got to keep going and going until you're absolutely fried. You know, and it just starts to all of a sudden creep up in you. I think on this I was still feeling pretty relaxed here. I didn't really feel I was challenged. It was probably when I hit the 10% mark, it started to, you know, all of a sudden I could really notice the incline, and it just feels like you're sprinting, even though the speed on the treadmill is exactly the same throughout. You know, so the key to this is to try and stay relaxed as long as possible. Try and keep your breathing relaxed. Try and find a good rhythm. And all of those things will help you to sort of last longer, and you'll sort of see here I'm getting towards the end, I think. Here we go. Yep, I must be almost done about now, I think. And yeah, and again, at the end of it, you just test your heart rate. If you've got a watch on like Garmin, iWatch, or Polar, or whatever watch that you may have, Nike or whatever, there's heaps of them out there these days. That'll give you some measurements as well. You can sort of see here as I'm getting fatigued how my arm swing starts to increase. I start to rock and roll a little bit. That's always a giveaway someone's getting tired, when their shoulders and their head are starting to move around a lot more. Again, when you're running up a 10% incline, you know, it's inevitable you're going to hit a point where you're just going to be completely gone. But yeah, the longer you can sort of stay relaxed, stay tall, and avoid all that sort of postural sway and movement, the longer you'll last. But easier said than done. All right, so that's a great way for you to measure. So there's 3 tests that you can use, and the tests themselves are a great exercise. Just don't do them every day. You can't train like this all the time. Like once every 2 weeks might be enough for this sort of a thing, or the step-up one you could probably do a bit more regularly. Sort of, here we go. So we can see I'm about to go to 10% now, and I think I only last about another 20 seconds after that, 20, 30 seconds. So yeah. All right, so that gives you a rough idea of how to do them. Again, check the description under the video, and it gives you all the formula of how to do it all. All right, and I hope you enjoy that video, and we'll see you on our next one.